David Fincher's Mank is a loving tribute to Hollywood's past, and a stern reminder that that past is not so far removed from the present. A lot of the coverage of Mank is dedicated to director David Fincher's painstaking recreation of 30s and 40s Hollywood. This plays out in details from the costuming and set design, through to the choice to shoot in black and white and to mix the soundtrack in mono. Fincher even includes scratches on the digital footage to better emulate the texture of classic Hollywood films.
In the industry, we call them cigarette burns.
Hollywood history offers a siren call to a certain type of film fan and cinephile. It's no surprise that Mank is a major Oscar contender, given the previous success of films like The Artist and Argo at the awards. The backdrop of 30s and 40s Hollywood has a particular romance. The era that produced all-time classics like Citizen Kane, Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon, The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, and many, many others. Quick caveat here. Personally, I'm not as big a fan of this era as many other film critics and fans. My own preference runs to the silent era, especially German Expressionism, and to the new Hollywood era of the late 60s onwards. So this aspect of Mank didn't land as effectively for me as it has for many, many others. Still, allowing for this, the production is stunning and the detail is breathtaking. Mank is not just a chronicle of Hollywood history, but an example of it. The script was written by David Fincher's father Jack, back before Fincher directed Alien 3. This means the film itself is about half as distant from that original script as the script itself was from the production of Citizen Kane. Notably, although David collaborated with screenwriter Eric Roth to rework his father's script, Jack Fincher remains the sole credited writer. This feels appropriate. The movie's subject is Herman J. Mankiewicz, the screenwriter responsible for Citizen Kane and played by Gary Oldman in a dazzling performance. Taking his inspiration from critic Pauline Kael's controversial and largely debunked essay Raising Cain, Jack Fincher built the script to critique the idea of director Orson Welles as the sole or primary author of Citizen Kane. David Fincher tones down the more radical arguments in Kael's essay, but Mank is still constructed as a loving ode to the below-the-line staff who make movies what they are. The result of this approach is interesting. Fincher is one of the most distinctive auteurs working in Hollywood today, with a strong visual style and unique aesthetic, but he's never written his own scripts. As a result, Mank becomes a compelling paradox, an anti-auteur statement from one of modern cinema's few true auteurs.
That's director-proof.
It's these contradictions that elevate Mank. The film collapses Hollywood's past and present, with Fincher shooting on digital and in widescreen while evoking the look and feel of classic cinema. One major subplot involved Mankiewicz's discovery that the studio is involved in fake news, or, to use the film's own language, coverage that isn't news and isn't real. At one point, studio head Louis B. Mayer describes the movie-making industry in terms that feel like they reference DRM, and feel much more applicable now than they would have in the context of the 30s. The result of all this is to create a rare movie about Hollywood that doesn't seem overly nostalgic or fatalistic. Films like Singin' in the Rain or The Artist tend to suggest that filmmaking has lost something in its various permutations and shifts over the decades. Instead, Mank argues that the film business has always been a business, and the forces that drove it nearly a century ago are not so different today. Fincher isn't quite as comfortable emulating classic Hollywood as he is working in the more distinct style that he uses on his best films. This is most obvious towards the film's climax and in its concluding arc, when it bends towards the expectations of a Code-era Hollywood film that don't necessarily fit with Fincher's general aesthetic. However, as far as prestige pieces go, Mank is a much more compelling and engaging effort than Fincher's last major awards contender, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, if only because it indulges in some of the director's trademark cynicism. I guess you could say, it has the right stuff.